A grey morning off the southwest coast of Britain hardly did Murray Char 6 and her 24 crew members justice as one of yacht racing's most prestigious records was shattered. Robert Miller's twin-masted Super Maxi had just made the crossing from the Ambrose Light of New York to Cape Lizard, Cornwall in 6 days, 17 hours, 52 minutes and 39 seconds. The first time the 2,925 nautical mile crossing had been completed inside a week by a mono-hull craft. Since American sailor Charlie Barr sailed his yacht Atlantic from the US to the UK in 12 days 4 hours back in 1905, sailing enthusiasts have longed to become the fastest to cross the ocean. 2 years ago, Bernard Stamm of Switzerland set the previous record of 8 days, 20 hours and 56 minutes. Understandably, Miller and his helmsman, New Zealander Mike Sanderson, were both delighted with their efforts. The vessel went on to Falmouth, where a royal reception awaited. Among the welcoming party was His Majesty King Constantine of the Hellenes, the father of Crown Prince Pavlos, who was one of the crew members on board Murray Char IV. Two newcomers to the kiteboarding competition scene took the honours at the King of the Air contest in Hawaii. Frenchman Charles Delure took the men's title, with Susan Mai of the Dominican Republic crowned women's champion. The wind-whipped north shore of the Hawaiian island of Maui was the setting for the finals of the Red Bull King of the Air competition. International qualifiers from far-flung locations such as Dubai, Italy and New Zealand gathered for one of the most prestigious kiteboarding events. With a prize purse of $20,000 US up for grabs, competitors were looking to impress judges in two disciplines, freestyle and big air. For freestylers, the riders were scored on their jumps, manoeuvres and overall impression. For the big air competition, hang time was the key. He who stays in the air longest wins. Charles Delure of France was the outstanding entrant in the men's freestyle, without a single defeat on his way to beating American Mark Doyle in the final. The 25-year-old's big air and huge rotations were unrivaled. All this on his first visit to the beach. Suzanne Mai is making her mark in women's kiteboarding despite her lack of experience. The 19-year-old has only been kiting for a year and a half in her native Dominican Republic, but still stormed to the freestyle title ahead of illustrious opponents. Suzanne Mai described her win as just incredible. Marcus Flash Austin is one of the originators of the sport, and he rode himself further into King of the Air history by winning the hang time event, staying aloft for an awesome 7.29 seconds. Despite some inconsistent shore trade winds hampering the borders, the event still had its fair share of spectacular action. "22 cars lined up for the World Solar Race, preparing for an event that would take them across Australia from the northern Australian city of Darwin, south through Australia's remote outback to Adelaide, 3,010 kilometres away. The hot favourite before the start of the competition was the Dutch car Nuna 2, entered by the Nuon Solar team. But after a disappointing performance at the time trials, when the Nuna car finished 10th, at the start it promised to be a wide open race. Early on in the race, Nuna 2 seemed to overcome its problems in the trials and quickly overtook the rest of the field. At the Katherine checkpoint, 320 kilometres south of Darwin, Nuna had a 2-minute lead over second-place Tesseract, entered by the US Massachusetts Institute of Technology Solar Electrical Vehicle team. A further 7 minutes behind in third place was the Australian favourite Aurora from Melbourne. Aurora was the fastest car in the pre-race trials and seemed to be performing well early on. At the end of day one, when the sun faded and the power source diminished, the cars were given a chance to refuel. The South Australian team, Solar Consortium, seemed happy with 7th spot at the end of the first day when the sun went down, but they were hoping for better days ahead. They had been trying to get 600 kilometres on the first day, but were 20 kilometres short, so were going to try for 640 or 650 kilometres the next day. After perfect weather conditions the day before, a dawn start on the second day saw the teams trying to catch the early rays, but there were concerns about how long the clear sky would last. Nuna 2 opened a 28-minute lead on the second day as it raced towards the South Australian border. Coming into second place, Victorian team Aurora was aiming to stay there, but there was still a close tussle with Tesseract just behind in third place. With overcast conditions, the Dutch crew started the day taking it easy to conserve battery power. Close to Tennant Creek, nearly 500 kilometres north of Alice Springs, the pace picked up. By the afternoon, Nuon Solar had a 20-minute lead on Aurora. If the weather stayed fine, the Dutch favourites expected to break their previous record of 32 hours, 39 minutes that they set in 2001. Shattering their own record and crossing the line 1 hour and 34 minutes faster than in 2001, crowds gathered in Victoria Square to cheer the victorious team. The driver was clearly tired, but also delighted with his team's achievements. Their sun-powered vehicle completed the grueling 3,010-kilometre trip from Darwin to Adelaide in just 31 hours, 5 minutes. Earlier in the day, Nuon Solar set a blistering pace through the Australian far north, superior aerodynamics and good sunshine helping propel the electric car to speeds of up to 125 kilometres per hour. The Australian entry Aurora finished second, with the USA team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Tesseract, coming third. The 25th Intercontinental Eurasia Marathon started early in Istanbul, on the Bosphorus Bridge connecting the Asian continent to Europe. Around 100,000 professional and non-professional athletes competed in 3 different categories: the marathon, the 15-kilometre race, and the public race, consisting of crossing the bridge into Istanbul's main Taksim Square. Many people participate in the marathon's public race just to be able to cross the Bosphorus Bridge by foot, as this is normally forbidden. After starting the race, State Minister for Sports Mehmet Al-Sahin then joined in, along with Istanbul Mayor Ali Mufit Kaduna and Istanbul Governor Muma Gule. There was a demonstration against the war in Iraq and the Turkish Parliament's decision to send troops, but the protesters were quickly arrested by the police. Ethiopia's Bele Wolashe, who won the event, said he had worked very hard for it. Many competitors had no intention of running for a win. Some tried to picnic on the bridge, watching the beauty below their feet, while lots of other competitors took a moment on the bridge for a photo. Yachtswoman Tracy Edwards unveiled her latest project in London, a massive sponsorship partnership with the Gulf state of Qatar. The venture, known as Maiden Ocean Racing Qatar, is one of the biggest deals of its kind. 2 international sailing events based in Doha will be created, and Edwards will also oversee another attempt at the Jules Verne Round the World record. Edwards' Maiden 2 sailing team tried to break the Jules Verne record in 2002 and managed to set the world 24-hour record when they sailed 694 miles in a day. Edwards was quick to pay tribute to the support given to her by the Qatari royal family. Because of their contribution, 2 new races have been created, a new non-stop global race for giant multi-hulls, and a Sports Global Challenge starting from Doha, featuring both multi-hull and mono-hull yachts over 100 feet and 110 feet, respectively. There were perfect conditions and a huge crowd for the opening stage of this year's Vic Roads Herald Sun Tour in Melbourne, Australia. The strong international lineup was expected to provide a fierce challenge to the Australian riders, and in the first attack of the race, former tour winner Scott Meninga of the USA joined Gerrans and Tasmanian Sean Sullivan in the lead. The trio opened up a gap of up to 10 seconds before being reeled in. With 10 laps to go, Gerrans, Canadian Eric Wahlberg, Tiaan Kanamea of South Africa, and Australian Olympian Robert McLaughlin had all spent time in the lead, with Gerrans picking up handy bonus points in the sprints. Then, with just 5 laps remaining, American Michael Sayers, Uruguay's Hector Morales, and Australian Jamie Drew broke away, leaving Gerrans the task of closing the gap. At the bell, the trio still had a commanding lead, and in the sprint to the line, the American Sayers just held out Morales with Drew third. For Sayers, his third tour start producing his first stage win. Gerrans was rewarded for his work, time bonuses handing the 23-year-old the leader's yellow jersey. Parramatta Power have started the new Australian National Soccer League season in a promising fashion. The club, who are based just outside Sydney, are doing well after an unbeaten start just behind leaders Brisbane Strikers. At the heart of Power's impressive performances is 22-year-old Ahmed Elrig. Ahmed is the son of Lebanese immigrants and took up the sport at an early age, but could never have believed where it would lead. On the verge of his 100th league appearance for his club, Ahmed is a firmly established force in Australian domestic soccer. The forward is also making an impression internationally, having been selected to represent Australia's under-23 side, known as the Olyroos. Ahmed's family home boasts a huge collection of trophies and memorabilia, remarkable for such a young player. The one award he cherishes more than the rest is the Player of the Year trophy that he won as a teenager. Ahmed's parents immigrated to Australia from Tripoli in Lebanon 30 years ago. Ahmed is one of 6 children, and his younger brother Tarek also has his sights set on becoming a professional player. Unsurprisingly, Mahmoud Elric and his wife Wadad hold great pride in what their son has achieved. So, will Ahmed follow the likes of Harry Kuehl, Mark Viduka and Brett Emerton over to Europe? The power player is hoping that representing his country at the Olympics will help showcase his talent to the world. However, Ahmed is happy to stay on home shores a little longer. That is despite the trappings of success, like his brand new BMW, which bears Ahmed's lucky number, 21. It seems this is one player who is keeping both his feet firmly on the ground. Over 3,000 athletes listened for the gun at the start of the Beijing Marathon in the Chinese capital. From the start in the historic Tiananmen Square, the 26-mile course would wind its way through Beijing, ending in front of the National Olympic Centre. On the men's side, South African favourite Ian Seister never fulfilled his anticipated duel with expected rivals Jonathan Cheruno of Kenya and Ethiopian Ashbire Demisi. Instead, Seister's only competition came from a city bus that he nearly collided with close to the finish line, as he would win easily in 2 hours, 7 minutes and 49 seconds. Kenyan Cherono was a non-factor, settling for silver after finishing more than 6 minutes behind Seister in 2 hours and 14 minutes dead. Ashbire Demisi took bronze with a time of 2 hours, 14 minutes and 3 seconds. For Seister, who nearly broke the course record of 2 hours, 7 minutes and 35 seconds, it was a satisfying victory to end his running season. A famous face emerged as the women's winner. Local favourite and world 10,000 metres bronze medalist Sun Yingji of China claimed gold in a time of 2 hours, 19 minutes and 39 seconds. Compatriots Zhu Xinyu and Zhang Shunjing claimed silver and bronze as China swept the top 10 women's spots. Sun, a double gold medalist, is considered the best of a new group of women hoping to return Chinese distance running to the lofty heights it once held only a decade ago. But despite her recent accomplishments, Sun says she still has a lot of work to do. Bath's sixth straight win continued their amazing transformation since escaping relegation last season and opened up an 8-point gap at the top of the Zurich Premiership. But their 100% record is as much due to their defensive qualities as to any newfound try-scoring prowess, with Ollie Barkley kicking 5 penalties. Bath have conceded only 1 try in their last 5 games, and Saracens seldom looked like exerting enough pressure to create any opportunities to breach the line. Nor did Bath for much of a turgid game, and it took a wayward throw from Sarries hooker Joe Ross to give flanker Michael Lippmann the game's first try just before the break. The second Bath try came deep in stoppage time when replacement centre Alex Crockett burst through 5 tackles to score in the corner. Saracens, already without first-choice hooker James Parks with a neck injury, were forced to take the field with hamstring victim Alex Codling, leaving them an even bigger task against the league's best line-out. Bath, who have made light of World Cup calls and injuries which have decimated their team behind the scrum, welcome back Matt Perry at fullback and also wing Brendan Daniel. Saracens had first use of a stiff wind blowing corner to corner, but it was Barclay who drew first blood, landing a difficult crosswind kick after 5 minutes. The quality of rugby served up did not improve in the second half, but Bath's dominance up front, particularly in the line-out, ensured that Saracens, for all the efforts of Tane Randall and Simon Ranawili in the visitors' pack, could not work the opening they perhaps deserved. Saracens' resistance ended around the 75th minute. There was still time, however, for Barclay to add a 5th penalty and then for Crockett to score a try out of nothing in the 8th minute of injury time. This is the spectacular Kärnten Glacier in Austria, a glacial valley of tranquil beauty which has hosted the Kärnten Opening, the traditional season-opening event in the snowboarding calendar since 1985. Over 4,000 boarders had made the annual pilgrimage to the Austrian ski resort, and the technicians and competitors were busy preparing their equipment and the new products on offer for the final day of action. The weather conditions were perfect with powder snow and burning sunshine, as the 16 men and 4 female boarders prepared to traverse over the 70 centimetres of newly fallen snow. The women's jam session final was up first, and this was the winning run of Vera Janssen of Germany. The 20-year-old from Kempen in Germany is a graduate from the Academy in Utah of the USA. It is a specialist snowboard school, and she finished ahead of compatriots Steffi Hamann and Sylvie Schlereth, who came 2nd and 3rd respectively in an all-German top 3. Then the men's jam session final got underway, with Vincenz Lupz from Ammersee in Germany flying out of the starting gates. The 22-year-old professional has won this event, but this year he could only finish 3rd. Next up in the final was Flo Masser of Austria. The 21-year-old Austrian showed off his repertoire of tricks on the slopes as he surged up the leaderboard and finished in 2nd place overall. The judges had a desperately difficult job, but the performance of the winner made their decision easier. Alessandro Boyens of Germany, who now lives in Saas-Fee in Switzerland, had been snowboarding all summer, and this was the result of being in shape and in form. It was all over after his astounding first run, as he easily took 1st place ahead of Masser and Lupz respectively. These slow-motion shots showed off his medley of tricks over jumps and rails, and afterwards he felt all his hard work had paid off. One sensed that a German party was just starting in Kärnten. Muscovites may have been a little startled at the sight of Renault's Formula One car in the heart of Red Square. But with F1 enjoying immense popularity in Russia, surprise no doubt turned to delight at the realization that not only was this the genuine article, but that the car was accompanied by both the team's drivers, Fernando Alonso and Jarno Trulli. It came at the end of what has been a tremendous season for the team and their young drivers. Renault emerged as a force to be reckoned with, finishing 4th in the constructors' standings. Spaniard Alonso, at 22 years of age, considered one of the sport's rising stars, was 6th in the drivers' standings, while his Italian teammate Trulli was 8th. Alonso became the youngest driver ever to start from pole in Malaysia, and the youngest to record a Grand Prix victory in Hungary. Despite speculation linking him to other teams, Alonso said he was happy where he was and was hoping to win his first World Championship with Renault in the near future. The Mild 7 Renault team then carried out a promotional run through the centre of the capital, just outside Moscow State University, where local hot rods gather for drag races. Over 1,000 Russian racing fans came out on the rainy day to see the Formula One racing car for the first time in the city streets. Trulli and Alonso did not disappoint with a series of runs and spins that left the Russian crowd cheering for the Italian and Spanish driving duo. The wet Russian roads and the cheering fans might be just the recipe to help Renault challenge the big three teams in the coming years. Moscow still hopes to host a Russian Formula One Grand Prix. Bernie Ecclestone, who controls Formula One's commercial rights, has said he wants Russia on the calendar. This event proved a Russian Grand Prix would be a great success. In what was described as the largest drug bust in athletics history, the United States Anti-Doping Agency said a number of international athletes had tested positive for THG, and there had also been positive samples for the stimulant modafinil. The substance THG was initially found during analysis of the contents of a syringe handed in under anonymity by a top athletics coach. The IAAF and the athletes involved have been notified of the findings, but no names are likely to be released for some time. All of the athletes with positive tests will be subject to a 2-year ban and would be ineligible for events such as the Olympic Games if their B samples are also positive. It is believed some track and field athletes were using an undetectable designer steroid at the US Track and Field Championships held at Stanford and were retested. A designer steroid is one that is tweaked by chemists to make it undetectable under normal testing. THG is a very sophisticated designer steroid created by very sophisticated chemists. The athletes who did take part in this were very sure of themselves in being undetectable because the detection of the steroid in the body would only last a short period of time, 3 to 7 days, even though the effects would be felt for months. Although USADA will not say how many athletes have tested positive, Chief Executive Terry Madden issued a statement saying they did not know of any other drug bust that was larger and involved so many athletes. Until recently, THG was undetectable in doping tests. After analysing the substance and adjusting its tests, the United States Anti-Doping Agency retested the samples of hundreds of track athletes and said several had tested positive for THG. Some former Olympians like marathon runner Nancy Dietz have said that American track and field athletes are subject to some of the most stringent drug testing in sports, and that this discovery will only be good for the sport. The company at the centre of the scandal, Balco, supplied nutritional supplements to some of the nation's top sports stars. Balco analysed blood and urine from athletes, then prescribed a regimen of supplements to compensate for various vitamin and mineral deficiencies. The 2004 Tour de France has had a very unusual route set for it, and it will be far from business as usual. After the huge success of the 2003 Centenary Edition, organisers have tried something completely different, which might mean that race champion Lance Armstrong, who could be bidding for his next win, has to wait until the very end of the 3-week event to make his move. For in the past races, Armstrong has essentially beaten his rivals in the long individual time trials, the first of which is traditionally held at the end of the first week. But this time, the first solitary effort of the Tour will take place only 4 days before the finish in Paris, and it will come on the infamous 21 turns of the climb to La Alpe d'Huez. The 13.5-kilometre time trial to the Tour's most famous summit should be the undisputed highlight of the race. Armstrong's morale could be boosted by the fact that he won the last uphill time trial held on the Tour in 2001. Tour organisers have also said that the list of teams to be admitted to the race will be announced early to avoid the controversy of recent years. Overall, climbers, and especially Spanish and Italian riders, should be favoured, even though the big mountain stages look less demanding than in previous years. The first serious mountain stage will take the race to La Mongie via the Aspen Pass, while climbers will again have their say when the next day's stage finishes at the Plateau de Bellier. The big stage in the Alps will take the tour from Berg des Oussins to La Grande Bonnade, with the Madeleine Pass, the highest summit, at 2,000 metres. The first half of the race will favour sprinters, with a promising fourth stage in which the bunch will tackle the classic Mur de Grammont. It may prove to be one of the shortest Tour de France in history, but it is unlikely to prove any easier than usual to win. With the usual hype reserved for high-profile launches, Malaysia petroleum giant Petronas launched the groundbreaking road-going version of their superbike, the Foggy Petronas One, or FP1. The state-owned oil and gas company entered world superbike racing in 2002, and since then has embarked on a drive to succeed in the competitive world of cutting-edge technology. They then decided to launch a road-going version of the 900cc four-stroke triple, in association with superbike legend and Foggy Petronas racing team principal Carl Fogarty. Fogarty believes no compromises have been made to build a road-legal bike based on the thoroughbred racing version. The road bike benefits from the race technology and extensive testing data provided through Foggy Petronas Racing, and 80% of the FP1 race bike has been transferred directly onto the road bike. 150 road version bikes were manufactured to satisfy qualification conditions set by the Fédération Internationale de Motocyclisme to allow the Petronas team to compete in the World Superbike Series. Petronas regard the launch of the FP1 as an important step in their pursuit of excellence in the field of advanced engineering and technology, and the results are obvious and impressive. Seri Pak of South Korea has become the first woman to make the cut against the men in 58 years, firing a two-day total of 2 over par 146 on the Korean Golf Tour's $250,000 SBS Super Tournament. The 26-year-old Pak shot rounds of 72 and 74 to go into the weekend of the Korean PGA event at the par 72 6,448 metre course at the Lakeside Country Club in Yongan, south of Seoul. Pak is the first woman to make the halfway cut in a men's tournament since American Babe Zaharias did so at the PGA Tour's LA Open in 1945. However, Zaharias was eliminated from that year's event after shooting a 79 in the third round. 4 female golfers have taken on the men this year before Pak, but none had gone this far. LPGA number 1 Annika Sorenstam became the first woman in 58 years to play on the PGA Tour, but missed the cut at the Colonial with rounds of 71 and 74. However, some of the men's players said Pak was lucky on the Lakeside course. Most of the par 5s were downhill, half the par 4s shorter than 400 metres, and all par 3s under 190 metres. Despite her short drives, Pak could hit the green with middle or short irons on most par 4s. Pak shared 29th place to secure a spot in the weekend's rounds. Those who tied for 60th and above made the cut. Unlike in 1997, when the World Series title represented the beginning and end of a very brief era of success, Florida Marlin fans are confident that their 2003 championship will not be another flash-in-the-pan victory. The 1997 celebrations were tempered as fans braced themselves for a cost-cutting overhaul of the team by then-owner H. Wayne Huizenga. The Marlins went on to lose twice as many games as they won and finished in last place the following season. Attendances dipped steadily from then on as more losing records followed. And in 2003, it was no different until the team went on a rousing climb from the National League East basement to the very peak of the baseball world. Leaning from windows along the start of the parade route, fans shouted and threw clumps of ticker tape, while commuter trains were plastered with banners. A noontime victory drive through the city's Little Havana neighborhood followed, and team owner Jeffrey Loria gave them a further boost with the news that he intends to keep the team together, and that 72-year-old manager Jack McKeon had agreed to a one-year extension to his contract. McKeon took over after Jeff Torberg was fired and engineered the Marlins' remarkable turnaround from last-place team to World Series champions. The highlight of the rally, however, was centre fielder Juan Pierre's impromptu rap about the Marlins. Fans went wild as Pierre and pitcher Dontrelle Willis turned it on for the crowd, and later in Fort Lauderdale, a boat parade and another rally celebrated the victory. Every day at the Morumbi Cemetery in Sao Paulo, fans pray for the man considered by many as the greatest Brazilian race driver of all time, and also among the best in the history of motor racing. Since May 1994, when he was buried here, thousands of fans from all over the world have paid tribute to three-times world champion Ayrton Senna, proof that his legend lives on. In Sao Paulo, a huge project was launched by his sister, Viviane Senna, to celebrate the ideals of the driver and the pride he took in being a Brazilian citizen. A video with interviews where Senna talks about his dream of helping the poor children of Brazil was shown during the launch. An emotional Viviane Senna spoke about the project, which in Brazil will be called the Brazilian Ayrton Senna, and Ayrton Senna No Limits in the rest of the world. The Brazilian Ayrton Senna exhibition will be on display in Brazil and in a number of other countries, including France, Germany, England, Italy, and Japan. At the exhibition, visitors will be able to interact with objects on display and experience the same sensations as Senna when he raced. For Viviane Senna, the idea of the homage is to celebrate the life of a hero, not his death. For Ayrton Senna's niece, Bianca Senna, her uncle's dreams of helping the poor and creating the Ayrton Senna Institute is his best legacy. It's in places like these, the Sao Paulo State University campus, that one can see the results of the creation of the Ayrton Senna Institute. The non-profit, non-governmental organization was created in 1994 with the mission of helping to create conditions and opportunities that will enable future generations to develop their potential as individuals. The Ayrton Senna Institute has invested around $6.5 million in sport and education for underprivileged children in Brazil. That's the positive legacy of a three-time world champion who during his career was on pole 65 times and won a total of 41 races. WBA heavyweight champion Roy Jones Jr. returned to the light heavyweight ranks for a title bout with Antonio Tarver, but already has his eyes set toward a big money fight with former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson. Jones said he originally agreed to fight Tarver in Las Vegas because Tyson seemed unavailable due to legal problems. Jones said he spoke with Tyson and came away convinced they could work out a deal. He said he would never have agreed to fight Tarver if he knew a deal with Tyson was possible. But Tarver, who holds the WBC and IBF light heavyweight titles that Jones gave up when he moved into the heavyweight ranks, has plans of his own. But Tarver isn't going to give up the belts easily. Tarver, who was wanted to fight with Jones for some time, said that he had no plans on being just a warm-up opponent for Jones. If Jones beats Tarver, he could keep the light heavyweight belts or try to retain his heavyweight title by fighting the winner of a rematch scheduled between Hashim Rahman and John Ruiz. Jones won the heavyweight championship by defeating Ruiz, but he says he is not letting Tarver's talk bother him. Jones also dismissed the idea of fighting Lennox Lewis because the WBC heavyweight champion told him he probably will retire. Belts, however, meant little to Jones now. In the end, after an evenly matched fight, the judges awarded the fight to Jones. He won by majority decision to take the WBC, WBA light heavyweight titles. The wet and windy weather at the Moonee Valley Racing Club in Melbourne, Australia failed to dampen the racegoers' spirits. The big race was the Carlton Draft Cox Plate, the Australian leg of the World Series of Racing Championship, and all the talk was of short odds favourite Lonhro. The 5-year-old stallion was the biggest favourite since Kingston Town stormed to victory in 1967. But the forecast of an easy triumph for the Sydney-based horse began to look less certain as the race got underway. Jockey Darren Beadman settled the horse towards the back of the field as Paraka hit the front. Paraka was an unknown quantity going into the race, and gamely took the lead with Shower of Roses in pursuit. However, their deal was relegated to a side issue as the real contenders lined up at the front on the turn for home. Fields of Omar, Defier and Lonhro came to the fore, with most expecting Lonhro to kick on and take the honours. However, Darren Beadman's mount was unable to find a further surge, and it was left for Fields of Omar and Defier to battle it out. Stephen King on board Fields of Omar always had the edge on his rival Patrick Payne and guided the 6-year-old home by a neck. The victory was particularly rewarding for trainer Tony McAvoy, who helped the horse recover from a damaged ligament in his leg. The Cox Plate was only his 3rd run back in action. Strangely, part owner of the winning horse was Brian Martin, a Melbourne racecaller. Martin had to commentate on the special triumph as it unfolded and remained remarkably calm considering the situation. When people think of beach soccer, the usual image is of a game played on golden sandy beaches in hot sunny weather. But despite having more than 7,000 kilometres of beach to choose from, this year's Brazilian Beach Soccer Championship took place in the centre of São Bernardo do Campo, 1 hour away from the capital. The idea was to take the game to a wider audience, but poor weather conditions didn't help their cause. But those who did attend certainly appreciated the efforts made. Beach soccer is now played in around 70 countries, including the likes of Poland, Norway and Thailand. In Europe alone, 17 countries have beach soccer teams. With such support, moves are afoot to try and get beach soccer accepted as an Olympic sport. Not surprisingly, Brazil is the leading light in this, having more than 10,000 members of the Brazilian Confederation of Beach Soccer, representing 17 Brazilian states. The feeling is that Brazil could dominate beach soccer much in the way it has its more established version. Goalkeeper Pierre Ganhar de Alameda is one of Brazil's best players, and he believes that if it becomes an Olympic sport, then Brazil will certainly win the gold medal. One of the reasons for holding the Brazilian Championships in a city centre is to try and shed the sport's image as being purely a beach sport. President of the Brazilian Confederation of Beach Soccer, Fulvio Danilas, believes that beach soccer deserves to be recognised as a major international sport. It remains to be seen whether beach soccer can make the leap from leisure pursuit to Olympic sport. But if it does, you can be sure that Brazil will be hot favourites to win gold. The top Argentinian football team, Boca Juniors, joined forces with a group of women searching for their lost grandchildren. The grandchildren of the Plaza de Mayo grandmothers were born to parents who were prisoners of the Argentinian dictatorship. The event was part of a campaign known as Sport in Search of Identities. The ceremony took place in the famous Argentinian soccer stadium La Bombonera as the players and coach met a group of grandmothers. For the last 26 years, the women have been searching for their grandchildren, born in captivity during the country's dictatorship from 1976 to 1983. During that period, the detained pregnant women were forced to give up their babies after birth. The mothers were executed afterwards. The majority of children were given to police officers or military personnel and were registered as their own. Many others were put up for adoption according to human rights organizations. When democracy returned to Argentina after the dictatorship, 75 grandchildren were found, but more than 400 continue to be lost. Other top soccer teams are getting involved in the campaign. In the rugby world, the legendary William Webb Ellis Trophy is the ultimate prize. In 2003, the Rugby World Cup was held in Australia and caused a great deal of excitement, as can be seen here when the World Cup trophy arrived to the sort of reception normally reserved for pop stars and heads of state, while the Wales rugby team swam with sharks at an aquarium in Sydney. Television crews, photographers and reporters filled the welcome hall at Sydney Airport to witness the arrival of the Webb Ellis Cup. The gold trophy was carried through customs by IRB chairman Sid Miller before being whisked away by police escort on the start of its promotional tour around Australia. The trophy is made of gilt silver with a distinctive gold outline. It was returned to Sydney for the opening match of the World Cup between Australia and Argentina before eventually being presented to the victorious captain. Commissioned by the IRB for the inaugural World Cup in 1987, the trophy is named after William Webb Ellis, a student of England's rugby school. Legend has it that Ellis was the inspiration behind rugby after he picked up a soccer ball and ran with it in 1823, although historians now dispute this as the origin of the game. Only 3 countries have won the World Cup: Australia twice in 1991 and 1999, New Zealand 1987, and South Africa 1995. If Australia won the tournament again in 2003, they would be allowed to keep the trophy for good as a reward for winning it 3 times, with a replica made for future tournaments. But it's not all hard grind. Welsh rugby players took some time off before the series started and after a busy training schedule to swim amongst sharks while being supervised by trained divers at an aquarium in Manly. The players, fully loaded in their scuba diving gear, jumped in with the sharks for a friendly swim. After the first of 4 long-haul races in Brazil, the MotoGP paddock has unpacked and reassembled on the other side of the globe in Japan for the Pacific Grand Prix of Motegi. With successive trips to Malaysia and Australia still to come before the final round at Valencia in Spain, it was business as usual in the paddock this afternoon as the teams and riders focused their attentions not only on an intensive period of racing, but also on negotiations for the next season's rides. A hat-trick of consecutive victories at Buono, Estoril and Rio have seen the 24-year-old Valentino Rossi extend his points advantage over Honda colleague Sete Gibernau. While Rossi will be looking to repeat his victory at Montecchi from 2 years ago, Gibernau aims to improve a dismal record at the circuit, having never finished higher than 5th. The Twin Ring Montecchi also offers many participation-type amusement facilities, which are located around the circuit. Twin Ring Montecchi's main facility. These include the wooded park called Hello Woods, the Honda Collection Hall, where a trip down Honda's memory lane can be enjoyed by viewing the legendary motorcycles and automobiles. Then there is the Fan Fun Lab, where people can see and think of future manufacturing possibilities together with the humanoid robot Asimo. Here, 125cc World Championship leader Dani Pedrosa joined a group of other riders including Andrew Pitt, Nicky Hayden and MotoGP stars Max Biaggi, Carlos Chia and Alex Barros on a visit to the Fan Fun Lab. The group took a guided tour of the high-tech museum and were introduced to Honda's famous Asimo.